What if I told you that while most people are victims of their circumstances, there's a small group of individuals who seem to turn every obstacle into an opportunity? They don't just survive setbacks, they use them as stepping stones to greater success. They don't react to problems, they anticipate them. They don't hope things work out, they make things work out. The difference isn't luck, intelligence, or even resources. The difference is mindset. Specifically, what I call the tactical mindset. While others live in reactive mode, constantly surprised by challenges and overwhelmed by unexpected problems, tactical thinkers operate from a position of strategic advantage. They see what's coming before it hits. They prepare for problems before they arise. They turn uncertainty into opportunity. This audiobook will rewire your brain to think tactically instead of reactively. You'll learn to anticipate setbacks, prepare contingency plans, and execute with precision under pressure. By the time you finish, you won't just be surviving your challenges, you'll be using them to dominate your field. But this isn't about positive thinking or motivational fluff. This is about cold, hard, tactical systems that work in the real world. Systems used by military strategists, elite athletes, and billion-dollar CEOs to stay ahead of the competition. Today, you're going to learn how to think and operate at that level. Chapter 1. The Reactive Trap. Why most people stay stuck. Here's a brutal truth that most people refuse to accept. They are not in control of their lives. They think they are, but they're not. They wake up every morning and react to whatever the day throws at them. Phone rings, they answer. Email comes in, they respond. Problem arises, they panic. They live their entire lives in response mode, never getting ahead, never gaining ground. Always one step behind. The reactive trap is the single biggest reason why most people stay mediocre. They operate under the illusion that they're taking action, but they're not taking action, they're taking reaction. There's a massive difference. And understanding this difference will change everything about how you approach your life and your goals. Reactive people wait for problems to hit before they address them. When their business starts struggling, that's when they think about marketing. When their relationship starts failing, that's when they think about communication. When their health starts declining, that's when they think about exercise. They're always behind the curve, always playing catch-up, always in crisis mode. Tactical thinkers, on the other hand, live in anticipation mode. They're constantly scanning the environment for potential threats and opportunities. They prepare for problems before they arise. They build systems that prevent crises from happening in the first place. And when challenges do come, they're ready with a plan. This isn't about being paranoid or negative. It's about being realistic and prepared. The world is unpredictable, but most problems follow predictable patterns. Markets crash approximately every 10 years. Relationships face challenges during times of stress. Health issues arise when we neglect our bodies. Technology changes rapidly, making old skills obsolete. Tactical thinkers study these patterns. They prepare for economic downturns by building multiple income streams and emergency funds. They strengthen their relationships during good times so they can weather the storms. They invest in their health before problems arise. They continuously upgrade their skills before they become irrelevant. The reactive trap keeps people stuck because it creates a perpetual cycle of crisis management. You spend all your time putting out fires, so you never have time to prevent fires. You're so busy dealing with immediate problems that you can't think strategically about the future. You become a victim of circumstance instead of a creator of outcomes. Most people fall into this trap because they've been conditioned to believe that reacting quickly is the same as taking action. They confuse motion with progress. They mistake busyness for productivity. They think that because they're constantly moving, they must be moving forward. But reactive motion is often just spinning in place. The first step to developing a tactical mindset is recognizing when you're operating reactively instead of tactically. Ask yourself, am I responding to what's happening, or am I creating what happens? Am I following someone else's agenda, or am I executing my own plan? Am I reacting to problems, or am I preventing them? Once you start asking these questions, you'll realize how much of your life is spent in reactive mode. The good news is that awareness is the first step to change. You can't fix what you don't acknowledge. But once you see the pattern, you can start breaking it. The tactical mindset isn't just about thinking differently, it's about operating differently. It's about moving from a defensive posture to an offensive one. Instead of waiting for life to happen to you, you start making life happen for you. Instead of being surprised by challenges, you anticipate them. Instead of scrambling for solutions, you already have them prepared. This shift in mindset changes everything. When you're operating tactically, you're no longer at the mercy of circumstances. You become the person who creates circumstances. You stop reacting to your environment and start controlling your environment. You transform from someone who hopes things work out to someone who makes things work out. Chapter 2. The Anticipation Advantage. Seeing problems before they hit. Elite performers in every field share one critical ability. They see problems coming before anyone else does. While others are blindsided by setbacks, tactical thinkers are already 3 steps ahead with solutions in place. This isn't prophecy or luck. It's pattern recognition, combined with systematic preparation. The anticipation advantage comes from understanding that most problems aren't random events. They follow predictable patterns, have warning signs, and can be identified in advance if you know what to look for. The key is developing the awareness to spot these patterns and the discipline to act on them before the crisis hits. Think about successful investors. They don't make money by reacting to market crashes. They make money by anticipating them. They study economic indicators, monitor warning signs, and position themselves to profit when others panic. They're not smarter than everyone else. They just see the patterns that others ignore. The same principle applies to every area of life. Successful entrepreneurs anticipate market shifts and pivot before their competition realizes what's happening. Elite athletes anticipate their opponents' moves and prepare counter-strategies. Master negotiators anticipate objections and prepare responses in advance. Developing anticipation skills starts with pattern recognition. Every industry, every relationship, every personal challenge has predictable cycles and warning signs. The question is, are you paying attention to them? In business, declining customer satisfaction scores predict future revenue problems. Increased employee turnover signals management issues. Market saturation indicates the need for innovation. These aren't mysterious phenomena. They're clear indicators that problems are brewing. In relationships, communication breakdowns predict conflict. Decreased intimacy signals relationship stress. Different life goals indicate future incompatibility. Again, these aren't surprising developments. They're predictable patterns that most people simply ignore until it's too late. In personal development, decreased motivation predicts performance decline. Neglecting health habits leads to physical problems. Avoiding difficult conversations creates relationship tension. The signs are always there. The question is whether you're disciplined enough to act on them. The tactical approach to anticipation involves three key components: environmental scanning, scenario planning, and early warning systems. Environmental scanning means constantly monitoring your environment for changes and trends. This isn't paranoid hypervigilance. It's strategic awareness. You're looking for shifts in market conditions, changes in team dynamics, alterations in personal circumstances, or modifications in relationship patterns. Successful people make environmental scanning a daily habit. They read industry reports, monitor competitor activities, track key performance indicators, and stay connected with important networks. They're not just focused on what's happening now, they're focused on what's developing. Scenario planning involves thinking through multiple possible futures and preparing for each one. Instead of assuming everything will go according to plan, tactical thinkers ask, what if this doesn't work? What if the market changes? What if key people leave? What if funding falls through? For each scenario, they develop contingency plans. They identify potential solutions, prepare necessary resources, and establish trigger points for implementing alternative strategies. This isn't negative thinking. It's strategic thinking. Early warning systems are mechanisms that alert you to problems before they become crises. These might be key performance indicators that signal declining performance, regular check-ins that reveal relationship issues, or health metrics that indicate physical problems. The key to effective early warning systems is establishing them during good times, not waiting until problems arise. You want to identify the metrics that matter most and monitor them consistently. This gives you the lead time you need to address issues before they spiral out of control. Most people resist anticipation planning because it forces them to confront uncomfortable possibilities. They'd rather hope for the best than prepare for challenges. This reactive mindset leaves them vulnerable and unprepared when difficulties inevitably arise. Tactical thinkers embrace the discomfort of anticipation because they understand it's the price of control. They'd rather spend time preparing for problems that might not happen than be caught off guard by problems they could have anticipated. The anticipation advantage isn't about being negative or paranoid. It's about being realistic and prepared. It's about accepting that challenges are part of life and choosing to face them from a position of strength rather than weakness. When you develop strong anticipation skills, you stop being surprised by setbacks. You see them coming, you're prepared with solutions, and you often prevent them entirely. You move from reactive crisis management to proactive problem prevention. Chapter 3. Building your tactical operating system. Your mind is either running a tactical operating system or a reactive operating system. There's no middle ground. Either you're systematically anticipating challenges and executing planned responses, or you're randomly reacting to whatever life throws at you. The difference between these two systems determines whether you control your circumstances or your circumstances control you. Most people run their lives on a reactive operating system by default. They wake up without a plan, respond to whatever demands immediate attention, and end the day feeling like they accomplished nothing meaningful. They're busy, but not productive, active, but not effective. They mistake motion for progress and busyness for achievement. A tactical operating system is completely different. It's a structured approach to thinking, planning, and executing that ensures you're always operating from a position of strategic advantage. It transforms you from someone who reacts to events into someone who creates events. The foundation of any tactical operating system is clarity of mission. You cannot operate tactically if you don't know what you're trying to achieve. Most people have vague goals and unclear priorities, which makes it impossible to make strategic decisions. They want to be successful or be happy without defining what those outcomes actually look like. Tactical thinkers define their mission with precision. They know exactly what they want to achieve, why they want to achieve it, and how they'll measure success. They don't operate with vague aspirations. They operate with clear objectives that guide every decision. Your tactical mission should be specific enough to guide daily actions, but flexible enough to adapt to changing circumstances. It should answer 3 fundamental questions. What am I trying to accomplish? Why does it matter? How will I know when I've succeeded? Once you have mission clarity, the next component is strategic awareness. This means constantly monitoring your environment for opportunities and threats. You're not just focused on executing your current plan, you're also scanning for factors that could affect your plan. Strategic awareness requires developing multiple information sources. You need to know what's happening in your industry, your market, your organization, and your personal life. You need to understand trends, identify patterns, and spot early indicators of change. This doesn't mean becoming obsessed with information consumption. It means being strategically selective about what information matters and systematically monitoring the factors that could impact your mission. The third component is decision-making frameworks. Tactical thinkers don't make decisions randomly or emotionally. They have systematic approaches to evaluating options and choosing courses of action. They consider multiple factors, weigh potential outcomes, and select strategies based on logic rather than impulse. Effective decision-making frameworks help you process information quickly and consistently. They prevent you from being paralyzed by analysis or making impulsive choices you'll later regret. They ensure that your decisions align with your strategic objectives rather than your momentary emotions. The fourth component is execution systems. Having great plans means nothing if you can't execute them effectively. Tactical operating systems include structured approaches to implementation that ensure consistent progress toward objectives. Execution systems break down large goals into manageable tasks, establish clear timelines and deadlines, create accountability mechanisms, and build in regular review and adjustment processes. They transform abstract objectives into concrete actions. The fifth component is adaptation protocols. No plan survives contact with reality unchanged. Tactical operating systems include systematic processes for monitoring progress, identifying when adjustments are needed, and implementing changes without losing momentum. Adaptation protocols prevent you from rigidly sticking to plans that aren't working or abandoning strategies at the first sign of difficulty. They help you distinguish between temporary setbacks that require persistence and fundamental problems that require course correction. The sixth component is recovery systems. Even with perfect planning and execution, setbacks will occur. Tactical operating systems include predetermined responses to common types of failures. Instead of being derailed by problems, you have systematic approaches to getting back on track quickly. Recovery systems help you bounce back from setbacks faster and stronger. They prevent minor problems from becoming major crises and ensure that failures become learning opportunities rather than permanent defeats. Building your tactical operating system requires discipline and patience. You can't develop these capabilities overnight, and you can't implement them haphazardly. You need to systematically develop each component and integrate them into a cohesive whole. Start by clarifying your mission. Define what you want to achieve with precision and clarity. Then develop your strategic awareness by identifying the information sources and monitoring systems you need. Create decision-making frameworks that align with your objectives and values. Build execution systems that translate your plans into daily actions. Establish adaptation protocols that allow you to adjust course when necessary. Develop recovery systems that help you bounce back from setbacks quickly. The goal isn't perfection, it's systematic improvement. Your tactical operating system should evolve as you gain experience and face new challenges. The key is having a structured approach to thinking and operating rather than leaving things to chance. When you operate tactically instead of reactively, everything changes. You move from crisis management to opportunity creation. You stop being surprised by challenges and start anticipating them. You transform from someone who hopes things work out to someone who makes things work out. Chapter 4. The Pre-Mortem Strategy. Killing problems before they're born. Most people wait for problems to happen before they solve them. They operate under the dangerous assumption that if they don't think about potential failures, those failures won't occur. This reactive approach guarantees that when problems do arise, they'll be unprepared and overwhelmed. Tactical thinkers operate from the opposite philosophy. They deliberately imagine worst-case scenarios not to create anxiety, but to develop solutions in advance. They kill problems before they're born through a systematic process called pre-mortem analysis. The pre-mortem strategy involves imagining that your plan has failed spectacularly, then working backward to identify what could have caused that failure. Instead of waiting to learn from mistakes, you identify potential mistakes before they happen and develop prevention strategies. This isn't negative thinking, it's protective thinking. By anticipating failure points in advance, you can either prevent them entirely or prepare rapid response solutions. You move from reactive damage control to proactive risk management. The pre-mortem process begins with a simple but powerful question. Imagine it's 6 months from now, and this project has failed completely. What went wrong? This question forces you to think critically about vulnerabilities you might otherwise ignore. Most people resist this exercise because it feels uncomfortable to imagine failure. They worry that thinking about negative outcomes will somehow make them more likely to occur. But the opposite is true. By identifying potential failure points, you dramatically reduce the chance that they'll actually happen. The key to effective pre-mortem analysis is being ruthlessly honest about potential weaknesses. You can't solve problems you refuse to acknowledge. You need to consider every possible way things could go wrong, even if those scenarios seem unlikely or unpleasant. Start with the most obvious failure points. What are the critical dependencies in your plan? What happens if key people leave? What if funding falls through? What if market conditions change? What if your assumptions prove incorrect? Then dig deeper into less obvious vulnerabilities. What if your timeline is too aggressive? What if you've underestimated costs? What if competitors respond more aggressively than expected? What if internal politics interfere with execution? For each potential failure point, ask 2 follow-up questions. How likely is this to occur? How severe would the impact be? This helps you prioritize which risks deserve the most attention and preparation. High probability, high impact risks require immediate attention and detailed contingency plans. Low probability, high impact risks need monitoring systems and basic response protocols. High probability, low impact risks might be accepted as routine cost of doing business. Once you've identified potential failure points, develop specific prevention strategies for each one. Don't just acknowledge risks. Create action plans to address them. This might involve building redundancy into critical systems, developing alternative suppliers, creating backup plans, or establishing early warning indicators. The goal isn't to eliminate all possible risks. That's impossible and would paralyze action. The goal is to identify the most significant threats and develop systematic approaches to managing them. Prevention strategies should be specific and actionable. Instead of vague commitments to monitor the situation, establish clear metrics to track, specific thresholds that trigger action, and detailed protocols for responding to problems. For example, if you're launching a new product and identify customer acquisition as a critical risk, don't just plan to market aggressively. Develop specific acquisition targets, multiple marketing channels, fallback options if primary channels underperform, and clear decision points for pivoting strategy. After developing prevention strategies, create contingency plans for scenarios you can't prevent. Even with the best preparation, some problems will still occur. Having predetermined responses ready allows you to act quickly and decisively when challenges arise. Contingency plans should include specific triggers that indicate when to implement them, clear action steps for execution, and designated responsibilities for team members. They should be documented, communicated, and regularly updated as circumstances change. The pre-mortem strategy also applies to personal goals and challenges. If you're trying to build a new habit, imagine all the ways you might fail to maintain it. If you're working on a relationship, consider what factors might cause conflict. If you're pursuing a career change, think about what obstacles might derail your progress. For each potential failure point, develop both prevention strategies and recovery plans. This dual approach ensures you're prepared whether you can avoid the problem or need to overcome it. Regular pre-mortem reviews are essential for maintaining effectiveness. As circumstances change, new risks emerge, and old ones become irrelevant. Schedule periodic sessions to update your analysis and adjust your strategies. The pre-mortem mindset extends beyond formal planning sessions. Tactical thinkers habitually ask themselves, what could go wrong here? What am I not seeing? What assumptions am I making that might be incorrect? This isn't paranoia, it's due diligence. By consistently identifying and addressing potential problems before they occur, you dramatically increase your chances of success and reduce the stress and chaos that come with reactive crisis management. When you master the pre-mortem strategy, you stop being surprised by setbacks. You've already thought through the most likely problems and prepared solutions in advance. You operate from a position of confidence because you know you're prepared for whatever challenges might arise. Chapter 5. Tactical decision making under pressure. The quality of your decisions determines the quality of your life. But most people make terrible decisions, especially under pressure. When stakes are high and time is short, they panic, overthink, or freeze entirely. They let emotion override logic, fear override opportunity, and urgency override importance. Tactical decision-making is different. It's a systematic approach to making high-quality choices quickly and consistently, regardless of external pressure. It's the ability to maintain clear thinking when others are losing their minds and to act decisively when others are paralyzed by uncertainty. The foundation of tactical decision-making is understanding that pressure doesn't change the fundamentals of good decision-making. It just makes those fundamentals more important. Under pressure, you need structure more than ever, not less. Most people's decision-making deteriorates under pressure because they abandon their normal thinking processes and revert to emotional reactions. They make choices based on immediate feelings rather than long-term consequences. They focus on eliminating discomfort rather than maximizing outcomes. Tactical thinkers do the opposite. They rely more heavily on systematic processes when pressure increases. They understand that structured thinking is their protection against the emotional chaos that pressure creates. The first principle of tactical decision-making is speed versus accuracy optimization. In low-pressure situations, you can take time to gather extensive information and consider multiple options. Under pressure, you need to make quality decisions quickly with limited information. This doesn't mean making random or impulsive choices. It means having efficient processes for rapidly evaluating options and selecting the best available choice given time and information constraints. The key is distinguishing between decisions that require extensive analysis and those that can be made quickly with simple frameworks. Most decisions are simpler than people make them, but pressure tricks us into overcomplicating straightforward choices. The second principle is option generation before evaluation. Under pressure, most people grab the first solution that comes to mind and run with it. This leads to suboptimal choices because they never consider better alternatives. Tactical decision-makers force themselves to generate multiple options before evaluating any of them. Even under extreme time pressure, they take a moment to ask, "What else could I do here?" This simple question often reveals significantly better choices. The third principle is criteria-based evaluation. Instead of making gut decisions based on which option feels right, tactical thinkers evaluate options against predetermined criteria that align with their objectives. These criteria should be established in advance, not improvised during the decision-making process. When pressure hits, you don't have time to figure out what matters most. You need to know what matters most. Common evaluation criteria include alignment with long-term objectives, probability of success, potential upside, potential downside, required resources, and time to implementation. The specific criteria depend on your situation, but having them predetermined eliminates one major source of decision-making delay. The fourth principle is acceptable loss versus maximum gain thinking. Under pressure, people often focus exclusively on avoiding loss rather than maximizing gain. This defensive mindset leads to overly conservative choices that minimize downside but also eliminate upside. Tactical thinkers balance risk and reward systematically. They ask, "What's the worst that could happen If this doesn't work, can I accept that outcome? What's the best that could happen if this does work? Is that outcome worth the risk? This framework prevents both reckless risk-taking and paralyzing risk aversion. It helps you make appropriate trade-offs between safety and opportunity based on your specific circumstances and objectives. The fifth principle is implementation bias toward action. Analysis paralysis kills more opportunities than bad decisions do. Under pressure, the biggest risk is often taking too long to decide, not making the wrong decision. Tactical thinkers understand that in most situations, a good decision implemented immediately beats a perfect decision implemented too late. They set decision deadlines and stick to them, even if they don't have complete information. This doesn't mean being reckless or impulsive. It means accepting that uncertainty is normal and that waiting for perfect information often means missing opportunities entirely. The sixth principle is commitment with flexibility. Once you make a decision under pressure, you need to execute it fully while remaining open to course corrections as new information emerges. Half-hearted implementation guarantees poor results, even with good decisions. But rigid execution ignores the reality that circumstances change and new information becomes available. The key is committing to execution while maintaining strategic awareness. Developing tactical decision-making skills requires practice in low-pressure situations. You can't expect to make great choices under stress if you haven't developed the habits and frameworks during calm periods. Practice identifying your decision-making criteria in advance. Work on generating multiple options quickly. Train yourself to evaluate trade-offs systematically. Build comfort with making decisions without perfect information. The goal isn't to eliminate pressure, it's to perform well despite pressure. When you master tactical decision-making, you become someone others turn to when things get difficult because they know you can think clearly and act decisively when others cannot. Pressure becomes an advantage rather than a handicap. While others are overwhelmed by stress, you're using systematic processes to make quality choices quickly. You become the person who thrives in chaos rather than being destroyed by it. Chapter 6. The Preparation Advantage. Building systems that never fail. Most people prepare for success, but not for adversity. They plan for things going right, but never consider what happens when things go wrong. This leaves them vulnerable and unprepared when challenges inevitably arise. They end up scrambling for solutions instead of executing predetermined responses. Tactical preparation is different. It's about building comprehensive systems that function effectively regardless of circumstances. It's preparing for both success and failure, opportunity and crisis, expected outcomes and complete surprises. The preparation advantage comes from understanding that chaos is predictable. While you can't know exactly what problems will arise, you can prepare for the types of problems that commonly occur. Most setbacks fall into recognizable categories, and each category can be prepared for systematically. Financial setbacks, relationship conflicts, health challenges, career obstacles, business problems. These aren't mysterious events. They're predictable categories of difficulty that affect everyone eventually. The question isn't whether you'll face these challenges. The question is whether you'll be prepared when they arrive. Tactical preparation involves 3 levels of readiness. Immediate response capability. medium-term adaptation resources, and long-term strategic reserves. Each level serves a different purpose and requires different types of preparation. Immediate response capability is your ability to handle urgent problems without panic or delay. This includes emergency funds that cover immediate expenses, communication protocols for crisis situations, decision-making frameworks that work under pressure, and predetermined action steps for common emergencies. Most people have no immediate response capability. When problems hit, they're caught completely off guard. They panic, make poor decisions, and turn manageable situations into major crises. They react emotionally instead of responding tactically. Building immediate response capability requires identifying the most common urgent situations you might face and preparing specific responses for each one. What would you do if you lost your primary income source tomorrow? What if a key relationship suddenly deteriorated? What if a health emergency arose? For each scenario, develop a clear action plan that can be implemented immediately. Don't wait until the crisis hits to figure out what to do. Have the plan ready, resources identified, and key contacts established. Medium-term adaptation resources are your ability to adjust and evolve when circumstances change significantly. This includes skills that translate across different situations, networks that provide support and opportunities, financial reserves that provide time and options, and mental frameworks that maintain effectiveness during transitions. Medium-term adaptation is about resilience and flexibility. It's your capacity to rebuild, redirect, and reinvent when your original plans become obsolete. It's the difference between being destroyed by major changes and using those changes as opportunities for growth. Building medium-term adaptation resources requires investing in capabilities that remain valuable regardless of specific circumstances. Develop skills that are transferable across industries and situations. Build relationships that provide mutual support during difficult periods. Create financial buffers that provide time to adjust to new realities. Long-term strategic reserves are your capacity to take advantage of major opportunities and weather extended periods of difficulty. This includes significant financial resources, extensive professional networks, deep skill sets, strong personal relationships, and robust health foundations. Long-term strategic reserves provide ultimate security and maximum opportunity. They allow you to make bold moves without risking catastrophic failure. They give you the confidence to take calculated risks because you know you can survive even if those risks don't pay off. Building long-term strategic reserves requires patience and discipline. You're investing in capabilities and resources that you might not need for years or decades. But when the right opportunities arise, these reserves allow you to act decisively while others hesitate. The key to effective preparation is systematization. Random preparation efforts waste time and resources. Systematic preparation ensures that your efforts build on each other and create comprehensive capability. Start by conducting a thorough vulnerability assessment. What are the most significant risks you face in each area of your life? What types of problems would cause the most damage if you weren't prepared for them? What scenarios would overwhelm your current resources and capabilities? Be ruthlessly honest in this assessment. Don't ignore risks because they're uncomfortable to consider. The purpose isn't to create anxiety, It's to identify where preparation efforts will provide the most protection and advantage. Once you've identified key vulnerabilities, prioritize your preparation efforts based on likelihood and impact. Focus first on high probability, high impact risks. Then address high impact, low probability risks. Finally, work on high probability, low impact risks. For each priority area, develop specific preparation goals and action plans. Don't just acknowledge that you need emergency savings. Determine exactly how much you need and create a systematic plan to build that fund. Don't just recognize the importance of professional networks. Identify specific relationships you need to develop and create a plan to build them. Track your preparation progress systematically. Many people start preparation efforts enthusiastically, but lose momentum over time. Having clear metrics and regular review processes ensures that preparation efforts continue until adequate capability is established. The preparation advantage isn't about becoming paranoid or defensive. It's about building the foundation for offensive success. When you're thoroughly prepared for potential problems, you can take bigger risks and pursue bigger opportunities because you know you can handle whatever challenges arise. Preparation transforms you from someone who hopes things work out to someone who knows they can handle anything. This confidence allows you to operate from a position of strength rather than fear. You become someone who creates circumstances rather than someone who's controlled by circumstances. Chapter 7. Mental Warfare. Controlling your mind under extreme stress. Your mind under stress is either your greatest weapon or your worst enemy. There's no middle ground. When pressure mounts, stakes rise, and time runs short, your mental state determines whether you rise to the challenge or crumble under the weight. Most people lose control of their minds the moment stress increases. They panic, overthink, freeze, or make impulsive decisions they later regret. They let fear dictate their actions, doubt undermine their confidence, and pressure overwhelm their judgment. Tactical mental control is the ability to maintain clear thinking and decisive action regardless of external circumstances. It's commanding your mental state instead of being commanded by it. It's staying calm in chaos, thinking clearly under pressure, and performing at your best when stakes are highest. The battle for mental control starts with understanding how stress affects thinking. Under pressure, your brain defaults to primitive survival patterns. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for complex reasoning and strategic thinking, becomes less active. The amygdala, responsible for fear and emotional reactions, becomes hyperactive. This neurological shift made sense when humans faced physical threats that required immediate fight-or-flight responses. But in modern environments, this same mechanism sabotages performance during complex challenges that require careful thinking and strategic action. Most people never learn to override these primitive responses. They remain slaves to their brain's default settings, performing poorly whenever stress levels rise. They accept that pressure makes them less effective instead of training themselves to perform better under stress. Tactical mental control requires deliberately training your mind to function optimally under pressure. This isn't about eliminating stress. Stress can actually enhance performance when properly managed. It's about maintaining access to your highest cognitive abilities when you need them most. The first element of mental control is stress reframing. Instead of viewing pressure as a threat to your performance, you learn to see it as fuel for enhanced performance. Stress becomes a signal that something important is happening and that you need to elevate your focus and intensity. This reframing changes your physiological response to stress. Instead of triggering defensive shutdown mechanisms, pressure triggers enhanced alertness and capability. Your body produces the same stress hormones, but instead of impairing performance, they enhance it. Stress reframing requires consistent practice during lower pressure situations. You can't expect to suddenly master this skill during a crisis. You need to train your mind to interpret stress positively during routine challenges, so the response becomes automatic during major challenges. The second element is attention control. Under stress, most people's attention becomes scattered and unfocused. They try to think about everything simultaneously, which means they think effectively about nothing. They become reactive instead of responsive, jumping from concern to concern without systematic processing. Tactical attention control means deliberately directing your mental focus to the most important elements of the situation. Instead of trying to process everything at once, you systematically work through priorities in order of importance. This requires developing the discipline to ignore irrelevant information, even when that information feels urgent. Under pressure, everything seems important. But effective performance requires distinguishing between what actually matters and what just feels important. The third element is emotional regulation. Emotions under stress tend to become extreme and unstable. Fear, anger, frustration, and anxiety can overwhelm rational thinking and drive poor decisions. Most people either suppress emotions completely, which creates internal tension, or let emotions run wild, which destroys judgment. Tactical emotional regulation means acknowledging emotions without being controlled by them. You recognize what you're feeling, accept it as normal given the circumstances, and then choose your response based on logic rather than emotion. This isn't about becoming emotionless. Emotions provide valuable information about situations. It's about processing emotional information without letting emotional reactions dictate your actions. The fourth element is decision-making acceleration. Under pressure, many people slow down their decision-making, hoping that more time will lead to better choices. But in high-pressure situations, speed often matters more than perfection. The best available decision implemented quickly usually beats the perfect decision implemented too late. Tactical decision-making under stress involves using simplified frameworks that allow rapid evaluation and choice. You can't use complex analysis when time is limited, but you can use efficient heuristics that consistently produce good results. These frameworks should be developed and practiced during calm periods, so they become automatic during stressful periods. You want your decision-making process to become faster and more efficient under pressure, not slower and more confused. The fifth element is performance visualization. Before entering high-pressure situations, tactical performers systematically visualize themselves performing excellently under stress. They mentally rehearse staying calm, thinking clearly, and executing effectively. This mental rehearsal programs your mind for success before the pressure hits. Your brain has already practiced the experience of performing well under stress, so when real pressure arrives, the response feels familiar rather than foreign. Visualization should be specific and detailed, including not just successful outcomes, but also the mental state and processes that lead to those outcomes. You want to rehearse the internal experience of tactical performance, not just the external results. The sixth element is recovery protocols. Even with excellent mental control, extended periods of high stress can exhaust your mental resources. Having systematic approaches to mental recovery prevents stress from accumulating and degrading your performance over time. Recovery protocols include techniques for releasing tension after high-pressure situations, methods for restoring mental energy during breaks, and practices for maintaining mental resilience over extended periods of challenge. Mental warfare isn't about eliminating stress or avoiding pressure. It's about transforming pressure into performance fuel. When you master tactical mental control, stress becomes your ally rather than your enemy. You become someone who performs better under pressure rather than worse. Chapter 8. Execution under fire. Taking perfect action when everything goes wrong. When everything is falling apart around you. When plans are failing and pressure is mounting. When others are panicking and systems are breaking down. That's when your true tactical ability is tested. Anyone can execute when conditions are perfect. Only tactical operators can execute when conditions are chaos. Execution under fire is the ultimate test of preparedness, mental control, and systematic thinking. It's the ability to maintain precision and effectiveness when everything else is spinning out of control. It's performing at your best when circumstances are at their worst. Most people's execution ability collapses under pressure. When things go wrong, they panic and abandon their systems. They make reactive decisions based on immediate emotions rather than strategic considerations. They let chaos contaminate their thinking and destroy their effectiveness. This reactive response is natural but devastating. The moments when everything goes wrong are exactly when you most need systematic thinking and disciplined execution. Chaos is when tactical superiority provides the greatest advantage over reactive competitors. Perfect execution under fire requires three foundational capabilities: unshakable process, discipline, adaptive implementation skills, and rapid recovery mechanisms. Each capability builds on the others to create performance that actually improves under pressure. Process discipline means maintaining your systematic approaches even when external circumstances are chaotic. When others abandon their methods and improvise randomly, you stick to proven frameworks that guide decision-making and action. This doesn't mean rigid inflexibility. Your processes should be designed to handle uncertainty and changing conditions, but having structured approaches to thinking and acting prevents you from being overwhelmed by chaos. Most people abandon their systems under pressure because they never developed sufficient confidence in those systems during calm periods. They view their methods as suggestions rather than requirements. So, they discard them the moment alternative approaches seem appealing. Building unshakable process discipline requires extensive practice with your systems during routine situations. You need to experience repeated success with systematic approaches so that maintaining those approaches under pressure feels natural rather than forced. Your processes should be simple enough to execute under stress, but comprehensive enough to handle complex situations. Overly complicated systems break down under pressure, but overly simple systems lack the sophistication needed for difficult challenges. Adaptive implementation means modifying your tactics while maintaining your strategic approach. Circumstances will change rapidly during crisis situations, and rigid adherence to specific tactics can prevent effective response to new information. The key is distinguishing between core principles that shouldn't change and specific tactics that should evolve based on circumstances. Your fundamental approach to decision-making, priority setting, and problem-solving should remain consistent. Your specific actions should adapt to current conditions. This requires developing comfort with improvisation within structure. You're not randomly making things up as you go, but you're also not robotically following predetermined scripts. You're applying consistent principles through flexible tactics. Adaptive implementation improves with experience. The more challenging situations you navigate successfully, the better you become at maintaining strategic coherence while adapting tactical responses. Rapid recovery mechanisms are your ability to get back on track quickly when things go wrong. Even with excellent preparation and execution, setbacks will occur during difficult situations. The key is minimizing the time and energy required to recover from those setbacks. Rapid recovery requires predetermined responses to common types of failures. Instead of figuring out what to do when problems arise, you already know what steps to take to get back on course quickly. These recovery protocols should be simple and fast. During crisis situations, you don't have time for complex recovery processes. You need efficient methods that restore capability and momentum quickly. Recovery mechanisms also include mental and emotional restoration techniques. Crisis situations can be mentally exhausting, and maintaining peak performance over extended periods requires systematic approaches to renewing mental energy. Execution under fire also demands superior situational awareness. You need to maintain accurate understanding of changing conditions while simultaneously executing current tasks. This dual-track processing allows you to adapt quickly to new developments without losing focus on immediate responsibilities. Situational awareness under pressure requires systematic information processing. You can't try to monitor everything simultaneously. You need structured approaches to gathering and analyzing information efficiently. Priority-based monitoring focuses your attention on the most critical factors first. Instead of trying to track every detail, you systematically monitor the elements that most directly affect your mission success. This requires identifying key indicators in advance and establishing efficient methods for tracking them. You want to know immediately when important factors change, but you don't want to be overwhelmed by irrelevant information. Communication becomes crucial during execution under fire. Clear, concise, and frequent communication prevents misunderstandings that can derail execution. When circumstances are changing rapidly, everyone involved needs current information to make appropriate decisions. Communication protocols should be established before crisis situations arise. You need predetermined methods for sharing information, clear responsibilities for communication tasks, and efficient processes for decision-making input. Over-communication is usually better than under-communication during crisis situations. People need more information than normal to maintain effectiveness when circumstances are uncertain and changing rapidly. The ultimate goal of execution under fire isn't just surviving difficult situations. It's using those situations to gain competitive advantage. While others are struggling with chaos, your superior execution capability allows you to advance your position. Crisis situations often create opportunities for significant progress. Competitors become distracted by immediate problems. Markets become dislocated, and conventional approaches become less effective. Tactical operators who can execute under fire often make their biggest gains during these periods. When you master execution under fire, You stop fearing difficult situations and start seeing them as opportunities to demonstrate superiority. You become someone others depend on when things get tough because they know you can deliver results regardless of circumstances. Chapter 9. The Bounce Back Protocol. Turning defeat into your next victory. Setbacks are inevitable. Defeats are temporary. The difference between those who succeed long-term and those who remain stuck isn't whether they experience failure, it's how quickly and effectively they recover from failure. Champions don't avoid defeat. They master the art of bouncing back stronger. Most people handle setbacks terribly. They personalize failure, letting it damage their identity and confidence. They replay mistakes obsessively, instead of learning from them efficiently. They either give up entirely or repeat the same approaches that led to failure in the first place. This reactive approach to failure guarantees prolonged weakness. Instead of using setbacks as information and motivation for improvement, reactive people let setbacks become permanent damage to their capabilities and self-belief. The bounce-back protocol is a systematic approach to converting defeats into advantages. It's the ability to extract maximum learning from failures while minimizing the time and energy spent recovering. It transforms setbacks from stumbling blocks into stepping stones. Recovery isn't just about getting back to where you were before the setback. True tactical recovery means emerging stronger, smarter, and more capable than you were before the defeat occurred. You use failure as fuel for accelerated improvement. The bounce-back protocol involves 5 sequential phases: immediate damage assessment, emotional processing and stabilization, systematic failure analysis, capability building, and enhanced re-engagement. Each phase serves a specific purpose and prepares you for the next phase. Immediate damage assessment is about quickly and accurately understanding what actually happened without emotional contamination. Most people either minimize failures to protect their ego or catastrophize failures due to emotional overwhelm. Both responses prevent accurate assessment. Tactical damage assessment requires temporarily setting aside emotions to conduct objective analysis. What specifically went wrong? What are the immediate consequences? What resources or capabilities were lost? What opportunities were missed? This assessment should be comprehensive but efficient. You're not conducting an exhaustive investigation. You're gathering the information needed to make intelligent recovery decisions. Speed matters because prompt recovery action is usually more effective than delayed recovery action. The assessment should distinguish between reversible and irreversible consequences. Some damage from setbacks can be undone quickly. Other damage requires extended effort to repair. Understanding this distinction helps prioritize recovery efforts. Emotional processing and stabilization involves acknowledging and managing the psychological impact of failure without letting emotions drive recovery decisions. Setbacks naturally trigger disappointment, frustration, anger, or discouragement. These emotions are normal and contain valuable information. The key is processing these emotions systematically rather than being overwhelmed by them. Acknowledge what you're feeling. Accept it as a normal response to setback. Extract any useful information the emotions provide, and then choose your actions based on logic rather than emotion. Many people try to skip emotional processing, thinking they can ignore feelings and move directly to action. But unprocessed emotions contaminate decision-making and can emerge later in destructive ways. Brief but deliberate emotional processing prevents longer-term psychological damage. Stabilization techniques help restore mental equilibrium after setbacks. This might involve physical practices that release stress, mental practices that restore perspective, or social practices that provide support and encouragement. Systematic failure analysis is the most crucial phase of the bounce-back protocol. This is where you extract maximum learning from the setback to prevent similar failures and improve future performance. The goal is understanding exactly why things went wrong so you can make better decisions going forward. Effective failure analysis examines multiple levels of causation. What were the immediate causes of the failure? What were the underlying systemic causes? What assumptions proved incorrect? What skills or capabilities were inadequate? What external factors contributed to the problem? This analysis should be ruthlessly honest. You can't learn from failures you don't acknowledge, and you can't fix problems you don't understand. Defensive thinking that protects your ego prevents learning that improves your capabilities. The analysis should also examine what went right during the failure. Even unsuccessful efforts usually contain elements that worked well. Identifying these successes helps preserve effective capabilities while improving inadequate ones. Document your analysis systematically. Written failure analyses become valuable references for future decision-making and help you avoid repeating similar mistakes. They also provide evidence of learning and improvement over time. Capability building is where you systematically address the weaknesses that contributed to failure. This might involve developing new skills, acquiring additional resources, building stronger relationships, or improving existing systems and processes. Capability building should be targeted and efficient. Focus on the improvements that will most directly address the causes of failure. Don't try to improve everything simultaneously. Prioritize the enhancements that provide the greatest protection against future setbacks. This phase often provides the greatest long-term value from setbacks. The capabilities you build in response to failure often become competitive advantages that serve you for years. Your greatest strengths frequently emerge from your most painful defeats. Set specific goals and deadlines for capability building. Vague commitments to get better rarely lead to meaningful improvement. Clear objectives with measurable outcomes ensure that recovery efforts translate into enhanced performance. Enhanced re-engagement is where you return to active pursuit of your objectives with improved capabilities and refined strategies. This isn't just trying the same approaches with more effort. It's applying enhanced capabilities through improved methods. Re-engagement should be gradual and systematic. Start with smaller challenges that allow you to test your improved capabilities without risking major setbacks. Build confidence and momentum through successive wins before tackling the largest challenges. The enhanced re-engagement phase often reveals whether your recovery efforts were sufficient. If you experience similar failures, additional capability building may be needed. If you achieve better results, you've successfully converted defeat into advantage. The bounce-back protocol becomes faster and more effective with practice. Each time you successfully recover from setbacks, you build confidence in your ability to handle future challenges. You stop fearing failure because you know you can bounce back stronger. When you master the bounce-back protocol, setbacks become information rather than devastation. You develop immunity to defeat because you know every failure contains the seeds of future success. You become someone who actually benefits from adversity instead of being damaged by it. Chapter 10. Daily tactical habits. Programming. Automatic success. Excellence isn't an event, it's a habit. Champions don't perform brilliantly occasionally. They perform well consistently. The difference between tactical operators and reactive people isn't what they do during crisis situations. It's what they do every single day when nothing dramatic is happening. Most people rely on motivation and inspiration to drive performance. They perform well when they feel good and poorly when they don't. They wait for the right mood, the perfect circumstances, or sufficient energy before taking action. This emotional approach guarantees inconsistent results. Daily tactical habits eliminate the need for motivation or perfect circumstances. They create automatic behaviors that produce consistent progress regardless of how you feel or what's happening around you. They transform excellence from something you occasionally achieve into something you routinely perform. Tactical habits are different from regular habits. Regular habits might be beneficial but unfocused. Tactical habits are specifically designed to build the capabilities that create competitive advantage. They systematically develop the mental, physical, and operational capabilities that separate winners from losers. The foundation of tactical habit development is understanding that small actions performed consistently create massive results over time. Most people underestimate the power of daily consistency because individual actions seem insignificant. But compound effects make daily habits incredibly powerful over months and years. The key is choosing the right habits to develop. Not all daily actions are equally valuable. Some habits create exponential returns, while others provide minimal benefit. Tactical habit selection focuses on behaviors that build multiple capabilities simultaneously and create cascading positive effects. The first category of tactical habits is mental conditioning routines. These are daily practices that strengthen your mind's ability to think clearly, maintain focus, and perform under pressure. Mental conditioning prevents the psychological deterioration that destroys most people's effectiveness over time. Mental conditioning might include daily meditation to improve attention control, journaling to enhance self-awareness and learning, visualization to program successful performance patterns, or reading to continuously upgrade your knowledge and thinking capabilities. These practices should be brief but consistent. 15 minutes of daily mental conditioning provides more benefit than occasional hour-long sessions. The goal is creating sustainable routines that strengthen your mind systematically over time. The second category is physical optimization routines. Your body is the foundation for everything else you accomplish. Physical strength, energy, and resilience directly affect mental performance, emotional stability, and tactical capability. Daily physical optimization prevents the energy depletion and health problems that sabotage long-term performance. Physical optimization includes regular exercise to build strength and cardiovascular capability, proper nutrition to fuel optimal performance, adequate sleep to enable recovery and regeneration, and stress management to prevent burnout and maintain resilience. These habits don't require extensive time commitments, but they do require consistency. 20 minutes of daily exercise provides more benefit than sporadic multi-hour workouts. Consistent good nutrition choices matter more than occasional perfect meal plans. The third category is skill development routines. Tactical operators continuously upgrade their capabilities instead of relying on existing skills indefinitely. Daily skill development ensures that your abilities evolve faster than changing requirements. Skill development might include practicing critical professional skills, learning new technologies or methods, developing communication abilities, or building technical expertise. The specific skills depend on your objectives, but the principle of continuous daily improvement remains constant. Deliberate practice is more valuable than random practice. Focus on specific aspects of performance that need improvement, rather than just going through familiar motions. Identify weaknesses and systematically address them through focused practice. The fourth category is strategic planning routines. Daily strategic thinking prevents you from getting lost in immediate tasks and losing sight of long-term objectives. Regular planning ensures that daily actions align with strategic goals. Strategic planning routines might include daily objective setting to maintain focus on priorities, weekly progress reviews to track advancement toward goals, monthly strategy assessments to adjust approaches based on results, or quarterly vision refinement to ensure objectives remain relevant. These planning habits should be systematic but flexible. You're creating structure that guides decision-making while remaining adaptable to changing circumstances. The fifth category is relationship-building routines. Success requires strong professional and personal relationships. Daily relationship building prevents the network degradation that leaves people isolated when they need support most. Relationship building might include regular communication with key contacts, systematic networking to meet new people, mentorship activities to help others and gain wisdom, or community involvement to build broader connections. Relationship building should be genuine rather than transactional. Focus on providing value to others rather than just extracting value for yourself. Strong relationships emerge from consistent mutual benefit over time. Habit implementation should be gradual and systematic. Don't try to establish multiple new habits simultaneously. Start with one habit, develop it until it becomes automatic. Then add another. This approach prevents habit overload that causes people to abandon all improvements. Choose keystone habits that trigger other positive behaviors. Some habits naturally create cascading improvements in other areas. Morning exercise might improve energy levels throughout the day. Daily reading might enhance decision-making in multiple contexts. Track habit performance systematically. What gets measured gets managed. Simple tracking methods help maintain consistency and provide feedback on progress. Visible progress reinforces habit maintenance and creates momentum for additional improvements. Design environmental supports for habit maintenance. Your physical and social environment should make good habits easier and bad habits harder. Remove obstacles to positive behaviors and create obstacles to negative behaviors. The compound effect of daily tactical habits creates exponential capability growth over time. After months and years of consistent implementation, you develop capabilities that reactive people can't match. You become someone who performs excellently automatically rather than occasionally. When tactical habits become second nature, success becomes inevitable rather than accidental. You stop relying on external circumstances or internal motivation to drive performance. You create consistent excellence through systematic daily action. Chapter 11. The Information Warfare Advantage. Knowing what others don't. In every competition, every negotiation, every strategic situation, information is power. The person who knows more, sees more, and understands more has a decisive advantage over everyone else. While most people operate with limited information, and make decisions blindly. Tactical operators create systematic information advantages that guarantee superior outcomes. Information warfare isn't about spying or deception. It's about systematically gathering, analyzing, and applying information more effectively than your competition. It's knowing what others don't know, seeing what others don't see, and understanding what others don't understand. Most people are terrible at information management. They consume information randomly, analyze it superficially, and apply it inconsistently. They mistake data consumption for intelligence gathering and confuse being informed with being strategically aware. This reactive approach to information leaves them vulnerable to surprises, unprepared for changes, and unable to anticipate opportunities or threats. They operate with incomplete pictures and make decisions based on limited understanding. Tactical information warfare involves three core capabilities: strategic intelligence gathering, pattern recognition and analysis, and information advantage application. Each capability builds on the others to create comprehensive situational awareness that others cannot match. Strategic intelligence gathering is the systematic collection of information that provides competitive advantage. This isn't random news consumption or casual observation. It's targeted information acquisition focused on the factors that most directly affect your objectives. Most people gather information passively. They read whatever appears in their feeds, listen to whatever conversations they happen to overhear, and notice whatever details catch their attention randomly. This passive approach provides limited value and often creates information overload without strategic benefit. Tactical intelligence gathering is active and focused. You deliberately seek specific types of information from carefully selected sources. You know what information matters most for your objectives, and you systematically acquire that information from the best available sources. The foundation of effective intelligence gathering is identifying your key intelligence requirements. What do you need to know to make better decisions? What information would provide competitive advantage? What knowledge gaps are currently limiting your effectiveness? These requirements should be specific and prioritized. Instead of trying to know everything about everything, focus on the information that most directly affects your ability to achieve your objectives. Quality trumps quantity in intelligence gathering. Once you've identified intelligence requirements, develop systematic collection methods. This might involve setting up automated searches for specific topics, establishing regular communication with key information sources, monitoring specific metrics or indicators, or creating feedback systems that provide real-time information about changing conditions. The key is making intelligence gathering routine rather than sporadic. Consistent collection provides trend information that sporadic collection cannot. You want to understand how situations are evolving, not just what they look like at random moments. Source diversification is crucial for reliable intelligence. Single sources provide limited perspectives and can be biased or incomplete. Multiple independent sources provide confirmation and reveal different aspects of complex situations. Develop a portfolio of information sources that includes direct observation, expert analysis, insider perspectives, public data, and competitive intelligence. Each type of source provides different value and helps create comprehensive understanding. Pattern recognition and analysis is where raw information becomes actionable intelligence. Data without analysis is just noise. The value comes from identifying patterns, trends, and relationships that reveal underlying dynamics and predict future developments. Most people are poor at pattern recognition because they process information emotionally rather than analytically. They focus on dramatic events rather than subtle trends. They react to immediate developments rather than understanding long-term patterns. Tactical pattern analysis involves systematic examination of information to identify recurring themes, underlying causes, and predictive indicators. You're looking for the signals that predict future developments before those developments become obvious to everyone else. This requires disciplined analytical thinking. Instead of accepting information at face value, you systematically examine it for deeper meaning. What does this information reveal about underlying conditions? What patterns does it suggest? What does it predict about future developments? Pattern analysis also involves identifying anomalies that signal significant changes. Normal patterns provide baseline understanding, but deviations from normal patterns often predict major developments. Learning to spot these anomalies early provides enormous competitive advantage. Trend analysis helps you understand the direction and speed of change. Instead of just knowing what's happening now, you understand where things are heading. This allows you to position yourself advantageously for future conditions rather than just reacting to current conditions. Correlation analysis helps you understand relationships between different factors. This reveals how changes in one area affect other areas and helps you predict cascade effects from specific developments. Information advantage application is where intelligence becomes competitive superiority. Knowing more than others is valuable only if you apply that knowledge more effectively than others would apply it. The goal isn't just having better information. It's using better information to create better outcomes. Most people fail to apply information advantages effectively. They either hoard information without using it or share it indiscriminately without gaining benefit. They mistake information possession for information utilization. Tactical application involves using information advantages to make superior decisions. Time actions optimally, position resources advantageously, and anticipate competitor moves before competitors make them. Superior decision-making comes from having more complete and accurate information than others have when making similar decisions. You see factors they don't see, understand dynamics they don't understand, and anticipate consequences they don't anticipate. Optimal timing comes from understanding when conditions will be most favorable for specific actions. Instead of acting when you feel ready, you act when circumstances provide maximum advantage. Information advantages allow you to identify these optimal timing windows before others do. Strategic positioning comes from understanding how situations will evolve and positioning yourself to benefit from those evolutions. While others position themselves for current conditions, you position yourself for future conditions. Competitive anticipation comes from understanding competitor capabilities, limitations, and likely responses to different situations. This allows you to plan moves that force competitors into disadvantageous responses or that exploit competitor weaknesses. Information security is a crucial component of information warfare. Your information advantages provide value only as long as others don't have the same advantages. Protecting your intelligence sources and analytical insights prevents competitors from neutralizing your advantages. This doesn't mean paranoid secrecy, but it does mean strategic discretion. Be careful about what information you share, with whom you share it, and how you demonstrate your knowledge. Sometimes the best way to apply information advantages is subtly, without revealing that you have those advantages. Information discipline prevents information overload and maintains focus on actionable intelligence. Not all information is equally valuable, and consuming too much information can actually reduce effectiveness by creating analysis paralysis. Develop filtering systems that focus your attention on the most valuable information while screening out irrelevant noise. This allows you to maintain deep understanding of what matters without being overwhelmed by what doesn't matter. The compound effect of systematic information warfare creates escalating competitive advantages over time. The more effectively you gather and apply information advantages, the better your decisions become, the more successful your outcomes become, and the stronger your position becomes for gathering even better information. When you master information warfare, you stop being surprised by developments and start predicting them. You operate with superior situational awareness that allows you to make moves others don't see coming. You become someone who shapes events rather than someone who reacts to events. Chapter 12. Peak Performance Programming. Operating at maximum capacity. Peak performance isn't accidental. It isn't the result of luck, perfect circumstances, or random inspiration. Peak performance is the predictable outcome of systematic preparation, disciplined execution, and optimal state management. Champions don't occasionally perform well. They consistently perform at their maximum capacity. Most people never come close to their peak performance potential. They operate at a fraction of their capabilities because they don't understand how to systematically access and maintain their optimal state. They wait for peak performance to happen naturally instead of creating the conditions that produce it reliably. This random approach to performance guarantees mediocre results. Without systematic methods for optimizing performance, you're dependent on external circumstances and internal moods to determine how well you function. You perform well when everything aligns perfectly and poorly when it doesn't. Peak performance programming is the deliberate development of capabilities and systems that allow you to operate at maximum capacity on demand. It's the ability to access your best thinking, highest energy, and most effective behaviors, regardless of circumstances. This requires understanding the factors that optimize human performance and systematically developing the ability to control those factors. Peak performance becomes reproducible rather than accidental when you master the underlying mechanisms that create it. The foundation of peak performance programming is state management. Your mental and physical state determines the quality of everything you do. When you're in an optimal state, complex tasks become easier, creative solutions emerge naturally, and sustained high-level performance becomes possible. Most people have no control over their state. They feel energetic when conditions happen to be favorable and depleted when conditions aren't. They think clearly when they're well-rested and poorly when they're not. They perform confidently when things are going well and tentatively when they're not. Tactical state management involves developing the ability to access optimal states regardless of external conditions. You learn to generate energy when you need it, maintain focus when distractions arise, and sustain confidence when challenges mount. The first element of state management is energy optimization. Peak performance requires sustained high energy levels. Most people's energy fluctuates randomly throughout the day, creating periods of high capability followed by periods of reduced effectiveness. Energy optimization involves understanding your natural energy patterns and systematically enhancing them. This includes managing sleep to maximize recovery and alertness, using nutrition to fuel sustained performance, timing demanding tasks during natural energy peaks, and employing recovery techniques that rapidly restore energy when depleted. The goal isn't constant maximum energy. That's unsustainable and counterproductive. The goal is having reliable access to high energy when you need it most, and efficient recovery systems that prevent energy depletion from accumulating. The second element is attention management. Peak performance requires the ability to maintain intense focus on important tasks while filtering out irrelevant distractions. In our hyper-connected world, attention management has become a critical, competitive advantage. Most people's attention is constantly fragmented. They try to multitask, respond to interruptions immediately, and process multiple information streams simultaneously. This divided attention prevents deep thinking and high-quality work. Attention management involves developing the discipline to focus completely on single tasks and the systems to protect that focus from interruption. This includes creating distraction-free work environments, establishing communication boundaries that prevent constant interruption, and training your mind to sustain concentration for extended periods. Deep focus capabilities compound over time. The more you practice sustained attention, the easier it becomes to maintain concentration even in challenging environments. You develop immunity to distractions that derail most people's performance. The third element is emotional regulation. Peak performance requires emotional states that support rather than hinder optimal functioning. Anxiety, frustration, and doubt undermine performance, while confidence, calm alertness, and determined focus enhance it. Most people are victims of their emotional states. They perform poorly when they feel negative emotions and well when they feel positive emotions. They have no systematic methods for managing emotional states to support performance objectives. Emotional regulation involves understanding how emotions affect performance and developing techniques for generating optimal emotional states on demand. This might include visualization techniques that build confidence, breathing exercises that reduce anxiety, or mental rehearsal methods that program successful responses to challenging situations. The fourth element is cognitive optimization. Peak performance requires your mind to function at its highest level. This involves enhancing memory, accelerating learning, improving problem-solving capabilities, and maximizing creative thinking. Cognitive optimization includes practices that enhance brain function, such as regular mental challenges that build cognitive capacity, learning techniques that accelerate skill acquisition, problem-solving frameworks that improve decision-making quality, and creative exercises that expand innovative thinking capabilities. The brain is trainable. Systematic cognitive exercise improves mental performance, just as systematic physical exercise improves physical performance. The key is choosing cognitive training that directly enhances the mental capabilities most important for your objectives. The fifth element is physical optimization. Your body is the foundation for everything else you accomplish. Physical strength, cardiovascular fitness, and overall health directly affect mental performance, emotional stability, and sustained capability. Physical optimization involves systematic development of the physical capabilities that support peak performance. This includes strength training that builds physical resilience, cardiovascular exercise that enhances energy and endurance, flexibility work that prevents injury and maintains mobility, and recovery practices that enable sustained high performance. Physical optimization also involves nutritional strategies that fuel optimal performance and sleep protocols that maximize recovery and restoration. Your body must be capable of supporting the demands of peak performance over extended periods. The sixth element is skill mastery. Peak performance requires capabilities that are so well developed they become automatic. When you have to think consciously about basic skills, you can't focus fully on complex challenges that require peak performance. Skill mastery involves developing core capabilities to the level of unconscious competence. This frees mental resources for higher-level thinking and allows you to perform complex tasks with apparent ease. Deliberate practice is the key to skill mastery. This involves identifying specific aspects of performance that need improvement and systematically practicing those elements until they become automatic. Random practice maintains existing capabilities. Deliberate practice develops new ones. The integration of these elements creates synergistic performance enhancement. When energy, attention, emotion, cognition, physicality, and skills are all optimized simultaneously, the combined effect exceeds the sum of individual improvements. Peak performance programming also involves developing performance rituals that reliably trigger optimal states. These are systematic routines that prepare your mind and body for high-level performance. Athletes use pre-game rituals, performers use pre-show rituals, and tactical operators use pre-engagement rituals. These rituals serve multiple purposes. They create psychological transition from normal state to performance state. They trigger physiological changes that optimize performance. And they provide confidence through familiar preparation routines. Performance rituals should be personalized based on your specific requirements and preferences, but they should always include elements that optimize energy, focus attention, regulate emotions, and prepare for the specific demands of upcoming performance. Recovery protocols are equally important as performance protocols. Peak performance is unsustainable without adequate recovery. The ability to perform at maximum capacity repeatedly requires systematic restoration of mental, emotional, and physical resources. Recovery protocols include immediate post-performance routines that begin restoration processes, longer-term recovery practices that prevent accumulated fatigue, and strategic rest periods that maintain performance capacity over time. The goal of peak performance programming isn't occasional excellence, it's consistent operation at your maximum capacity. When these systems become habitual, peak performance becomes your normal operating mode rather than something you occasionally achieve. Chapter 13. Tactical Leadership. Moving others to victory. Leadership isn't a title or position. Leadership is the ability to move others toward objectives they might not achieve on their own. It's the capacity to inspire action, maintain morale during difficulty, and coordinate efforts to accomplish shared goals. Tactical leadership is leadership that works under pressure and delivers results when they matter most. Most people in leadership positions aren't actually leaders. They're managers. They can direct people who are already motivated, coordinate people who are already aligned, and supervise people who are already capable. But when motivation falters, alignment breaks down, or capability proves insufficient, their leadership fails. True tactical leadership works when people don't want to follow, when objectives seem impossible, and when circumstances are working against success. It's leadership that creates motivation rather than depending on it. builds alignment rather than assuming it, and develops capability rather than requiring it. Tactical leadership is essential whether you're leading a team, building a business, managing a family, or pursuing any goal that requires other people's cooperation and effort. Your ability to move others toward victory determines whether you achieve anything significant in life. The foundation of tactical leadership is earning the right to lead. Leadership authority doesn't come from titles or positions. It comes from demonstrating competence, character, and commitment that makes others want to follow you. Most people try to lead through authority rather than influence. They expect others to follow because they're supposed to, not because they want to. This approach works only when people have no choice. And even then, it produces grudging compliance rather than enthusiastic effort. Tactical leaders earn followership by consistently demonstrating superior judgment, unwavering integrity, and genuine concern for others' success. People follow them because they trust their decisions, respect their character, and believe they'll be better off under their leadership. This credibility must be earned through actions over time. You can't establish leadership credibility through speeches, promises, or credentials. It comes from repeatedly making good decisions, keeping commitments, and putting others' interests ahead of your own, when necessary. The first principle of tactical leadership is leading by example. Your actions set the standard for everyone else. If you want others to work hard, you must work harder. If you want others to maintain high standards, you must maintain higher standards. If you want others to stay committed during difficulty, you must demonstrate unshakable commitment. Leading by example isn't just about working hard or following rules. It's about embodying the mindset, behaviors, and standards you want to see in others. You become a living demonstration of what's possible and what's expected. This requires exceptional self-discipline. Leaders are constantly being observed and evaluated. Every action either builds or erodes your leadership authority. You can't have bad days, take shortcuts, or compromise your standards without damaging your ability to lead others. The second principle is vision communication. People need to understand not just what they're supposed to do, but why they're doing it and where it's leading. Clear, compelling vision creates the motivation that sustains effort through difficulties. Most leaders provide task direction but fail to communicate compelling vision. They tell people what to do, but not why it matters. This creates mechanical compliance, but not inspired performance. Effective vision communication paints a clear picture of the future you're working to create and explains how current efforts contribute to that future. People need to see how their individual contributions connect to meaningful outcomes. The vision must be believable and achievable, not just inspiring. Unrealistic visions create initial excitement followed by disillusionment when progress doesn't match promises. The best visions are ambitious enough to inspire, but realistic enough to achieve. The third principle is capability development. Tactical leaders don't just direct people, they develop people. They systematically build the capabilities that enable others to perform at higher levels and take on greater responsibilities. This requires understanding each person's current capabilities and growth potential, then creating development opportunities that systematically build new skills and expand responsibilities. You're not just accomplishing immediate objectives, you're building the human capital that enables future success. Capability development also involves providing feedback that helps people improve their performance. This includes recognition of good performance that reinforces effective behaviors and correction of poor performance that addresses problems before they become serious. The feedback must be specific, timely, and focused on behaviors rather than personalities. People need to understand exactly what they're doing well and what they need to improve, and they need to receive this information quickly enough to make adjustments. The fourth principle is decision-making transparency. People follow leaders. They understand and trust. When decisions seem random or arbitrary, people lose confidence in leadership and become resistant to direction. Transparent decision-making doesn't mean making decisions by committee or explaining every minor choice. It means helping people understand your decision-making framework so they can see the logic behind your choices and predict how you'll handle future situations. This includes explaining the factors you consider when making decisions, the criteria you use for evaluation, and the values that guide your choices. People who understand how you think are more likely to trust your decisions even when they don't initially agree with them. The fifth principle is communication excellence. Leadership effectiveness is directly related to communication effectiveness. You must be able to convey information clearly, listen to feedback actively, and maintain open dialogue that builds trust and alignment. Communication excellence includes the ability to adapt your communication style to different audiences and situations. Some people respond better to detailed explanations, while others prefer high-level summaries. Some situations require immediate direction, while others need collaborative discussion. Regular communication prevents small problems from becoming major issues. People need to know what's expected of them, how they're performing, and how circumstances are changing. Communication gaps create uncertainty that undermines performance and morale. The sixth principle is conflict resolution. Wherever people work together toward challenging objectives, conflicts will arise. Tactical leaders don't avoid conflicts. They resolve them quickly and effectively before they damage team performance. Effective conflict resolution involves understanding the underlying causes of disagreements, facilitating productive discussions that address real issues, and reaching resolutions that maintain relationships while advancing objectives. This requires emotional regulation and interpersonal skills that allow you to remain calm during heated discussions and help others focus on solutions rather than blame. You become the stabilizing force that keeps conflicts productive rather than destructive. The seventh principle is morale maintenance. Tactical leadership often involves pursuing difficult objectives under challenging circumstances. Maintaining team morale and motivation during these periods determines whether efforts succeed or fail. Morale maintenance involves recognizing and celebrating progress even when final objectives haven't been achieved, maintaining optimism without ignoring real problems, and providing support that helps people cope with stress and difficulty. You must be emotionally strong enough to absorb others' doubts and fears without being overwhelmed by them. Your confidence becomes the foundation for others' continued effort when they would otherwise lose hope. Tactical leadership also involves strategic thinking about team development and organizational capability. You're not just managing current performance. You're building the systems and capabilities that enable sustained success over time. This requires balancing short-term performance demands with long-term development needs. Sometimes you must accept reduced immediate performance to build capabilities that enable greater future performance. The ultimate measure of tactical leadership isn't what you accomplish personally. It's what you enable others to accomplish. Great leaders create other leaders and build organizations that succeed even in their absence. When you master tactical leadership, you multiply your impact through others. Instead of being limited by your personal capabilities, you achieve objectives through collective effort that exceeds what any individual could accomplish alone. Chapter 14. The Long Game Dominance Strategy. Building unstoppable momentum. Short-term thinking creates short-term success. Long-term thinking creates lasting dominance. While most people focus on immediate results and quarterly outcomes, tactical operators build systematic advantages that compound over time into unstoppable momentum. The difference between temporary success and sustained dominance isn't intelligence, resources, or luck. It's the ability to consistently make decisions that sacrifice short-term gains for long-term advantages. It's building foundations that support increasing levels of success rather than just achieving isolated victories. Most people operate with quarterly mindsets. They optimize for immediate results, react to current circumstances, and make decisions based on present conditions. This reactive approach creates volatile performance that depends on external factors beyond their control. Long-game dominance requires a different mindset entirely. You make decisions based on where you want to be years from now, not where you are today. You invest in capabilities that won't pay off immediately, but will create massive advantages over time. You build systems that become stronger and more effective with each use. The foundation of long-game dominance is compound advantage development. Instead of seeking immediate rewards, you systematically build capabilities, resources, and relationships that increase in value over time. Each advantage builds on previous advantages to create exponential rather than linear growth. Most people underestimate the power of compound effects because they're invisible in the short term. Daily improvement of 1% seems insignificant, but it creates dramatic results over years. Small, consistent advantages in multiple areas combine to create overwhelming superiority over time. The key is identifying which capabilities, resources, and relationships provide compound returns and systematically developing those areas even when immediate benefits aren't apparent. This requires patience and discipline that most people lack. The first element of long-game dominance is skill mastery progression. Instead of learning skills to adequate levels and stopping, you continue developing capabilities until they become world-class advantages. Excellence in key areas creates differentiation that competitors cannot quickly replicate. Skill mastery requires systematic, deliberate practice over extended periods. You must be willing to continue improving even after you've achieved competent performance. Most people stop developing skills once they reach adequate levels, which creates opportunities for those willing to pursue mastery. Choose skills that provide leverage across multiple areas of your life or career. Communication skills affect relationships, leadership, sales, and personal influence. Analytical skills affect decision-making, problem-solving, and strategic thinking. Physical capabilities affect energy, confidence, and mental performance. The second element is resource accumulation strategies. Resources provide options and security that enable bold decision-making and risk-taking. Accumulated resources allow you to pursue opportunities that others cannot afford and weather setbacks that would destroy less prepared competitors. Resource accumulation includes financial reserves that provide independence and opportunity, professional networks that provide information and influence, knowledge assets that provide competitive advantage, and physical assets that provide security and leverage. The key is accumulating resources that appreciate in value and provide ongoing benefits rather than resources that depreciate or require constant maintenance. Investment thinking creates lasting wealth, while consumption thinking creates temporary pleasure followed by resource depletion. The third element is relationship portfolio development. Long-term success requires strong relationships with people who can provide support, opportunities, information, and collaboration. These relationships must be built systematically over time. They cannot be created quickly when you need them. Relationship portfolio development involves identifying the types of people who could provide value in your long-term objectives and systematically building genuine relationships with high-quality individuals in those categories. This isn't networking in the traditional transactional sense. It's building authentic relationships based on mutual value creation and genuine interest in others' success. The strongest professional relationships often emerge from personal friendships built over years. The fourth element is system and process optimization. Instead of handling similar situations repeatedly through manual effort, you build systems that handle routine tasks automatically and processes that ensure consistent, high-quality outcomes. System development requires upfront time and energy investment that often exceeds the effort required to handle individual situations manually. But systems create compound efficiency gains that dramatically increase capability over time. Focus on systematizing activities that you perform repeatedly and that significantly affect outcomes. Marketing systems that generate consistent leads, production systems that ensure quality and efficiency, communication systems that maintain relationships, and learning systems that accelerate skill development all provide compound benefits. The fifth element is strategic patience with tactical urgency. Long-game dominance requires patience about overall timelines combined with urgency about daily execution. You must be willing to work for years to achieve major objectives while maintaining intense focus on immediate actions. This balance prevents both complacency about daily performance and anxiety about long-term progress. You execute daily tasks with intensity while maintaining perspective about the extended timeline required for significant achievement. Strategic patience allows you to make decisions that optimize for long-term outcomes even when they require short-term sacrifices. Tactical urgency ensures that you make consistent progress toward long-term objectives without losing momentum. The sixth element is competitive advantage reinforcement. As you develop advantages in various areas, you systematically strengthen and protect those advantages to prevent competitors from neutralizing them. This involves continuously upgrading your capabilities so competitors cannot catch up, building barriers that make it difficult for others to replicate your advantages, and leveraging existing advantages to develop new ones more quickly than competitors can develop their first advantages. Advantage reinforcement also includes strategic positioning that makes your advantages more valuable and competitor disadvantages more costly. You want to operate in environments where your strengths matter most and competitor weaknesses create the greatest problems. The seventh element is adaptation capacity development. Long-term environments always include changes that require new responses. Building adaptation capacity ensures that you can evolve with changing conditions rather than being made obsolete by them. Adaptation capacity includes learning abilities that allow rapid skill acquisition, resource flexibility that enables strategy changes, relationship diversity that provides options during transitions, and mental frameworks that embrace change as opportunity rather than threat. The goal isn't predicting specific future changes. That's impossible. The goal is building general capacity to respond effectively to whatever changes occur. Adaptation capacity makes you anti-fragile. You become stronger when stressed rather than weaker. Long-game dominance also requires measurement systems that track progress toward long-term objectives while maintaining accountability for short-term performance. Without measurement, it's impossible to know whether long-term strategies are working until it's too late to make adjustments. Develop leading indicators that predict long-term success rather than just tracking lagging indicators that report what already happened. Skill development metrics, relationship quality measures, resource accumulation rates, and system effectiveness indicators all provide early feedback about long-term trajectory. The compound effect of long-game thinking creates exponential advantages over time. While competitors focus on immediate results, you're building capabilities that will dominate markets years from now. While others react to current conditions, you're creating future conditions. When you master long-game dominance, you stop worrying about quarterly results and start creating generational advantages. You become someone who shapes industries rather than someone who reacts to industry changes. You build lasting value rather than temporary success. Chapter 15. The complete tactical transformation, becoming unstoppable. Everything you've learned in this audiobook comes together in a complete tactical transformation. This isn't about implementing individual techniques or adopting isolated strategies. This is about fundamentally changing how you think, operate, and engage with the world around you. The transformation from reactive person to tactical operator is profound and permanent. Once you develop these capabilities and mindsets, you cannot go back to operating reactively. You become someone who creates circumstances rather than someone who's controlled by circumstances. This transformation touches every aspect of your life. Your career advances because you anticipate opportunities and prepare for challenges others don't see coming. Your relationships strengthen because you approach them strategically rather than emotionally. Your finances improve because you think long-term and make decisions that compound over time. Your health gets better because you systematically optimize your physical and mental capabilities. Your learning accelerates because you approach skill development tactically. Your confidence increases because you know you can handle whatever challenges arise. But the most important change is internal. You develop unshakable certainty that you can figure out solutions to any problem and overcome any obstacle. This isn't arrogance or false confidence. It's evidence-based assurance that comes from repeatedly using tactical thinking to turn setbacks into advantages. The complete tactical transformation involves 5 progressive phases: reactive awareness, tactical foundation building, systematic implementation, advanced integration, and autonomous operation. Each phase builds on the previous phases to create comprehensive capability. Phase 1 is reactive awareness. This is where you recognize how much of your current operation is reactive rather than tactical. You become conscious of patterns you previously operated unconsciously. You see how much time and energy you waste responding to circumstances instead of creating circumstances. This awareness can be uncomfortable because it reveals how much control you've been giving up without realizing it. But awareness is essential for change. You can't fix problems you don't acknowledge or improve capabilities you don't realize are inadequate. During this phase, start tracking your decisions and responses to identify reactive patterns. Notice when you're responding to other people's agendas instead of executing your own plans. Observe how often you're surprised by developments you could have anticipated. The goal isn't judging yourself harshly for past reactive behavior. It's developing clear understanding of current patterns so you can change them systematically. Phase 2 is tactical foundation building. This is where you develop the basic capabilities that enable tactical operation. You learn to think systematically rather than emotionally, plan proactively rather than reactively, and execute disciplined rather than impulsively. Foundation building involves establishing the mental frameworks, daily habits, and operational systems covered throughout this audiobook. You develop decision-making processes that work under pressure, information-gathering methods that provide competitive advantage, and recovery protocols that convert setbacks into growth. This phase requires sustained effort over several months. You're rebuilding fundamental patterns of thinking and operating that you've used for years or decades. New patterns don't become automatic immediately. They require deliberate practice and consistent reinforcement. Focus on one foundational element at a time rather than trying to implement everything simultaneously. Master basic tactical thinking before moving to advanced applications. Build simple habits before attempting complex systems. Phase 3 is systematic implementation. This is where you begin applying tactical approaches to specific areas of your life. Instead of just understanding tactical principles, you start using them to achieve actual objectives and solve real problems. Systematic implementation involves choosing priority areas where tactical approaches will provide the greatest benefit and systematically applying tactical methods to improve results in those areas. This might be career advancement, business development, relationship improvement, or personal goal achievement. During this phase, you'll experience the first clear evidence that tactical approaches produce superior results compared to reactive approaches. You'll start achieving objectives more efficiently, avoiding problems others encounter, and creating opportunities others miss. These early wins build confidence and motivation that fuel continued development. Success creates momentum that makes further improvement easier and more natural. Phase 4 is advanced integration. This is where tactical thinking becomes your default mode of operation, rather than something you consciously apply to specific situations. Tactical approaches become automatic responses rather than deliberate techniques. Advanced integration means you naturally think several steps ahead, automatically consider multiple scenarios, instinctively prepare for potential problems, and consistently make decisions based on long-term consequences rather than immediate emotions. You stop having to remind yourself to think tactically. You have to consciously effort to think reactively. Your brain has been rewired to operate tactically as its normal mode. During this phase, you also start teaching tactical approaches to others. Teaching accelerates your own learning and helps you discover applications and refinements you wouldn't develop on your own. Phase 5 is autonomous operation. This is where you consistently create the results you want, regardless of external circumstances. You operate as a tactical expert who can handle any challenge, exploit any opportunity, and adapt to any change. Autonomous operation means you've developed sufficient capability and confidence that you no longer doubt your ability to handle difficult situations. Problems become puzzles to solve rather than threats to fear. Setbacks become information rather than defeats. You also begin creating value for others through your tactical capabilities. You become someone others turn to for advice, leadership, and problem-solving because they recognize your superior ability to navigate complex challenges. The complete transformation also involves identity evolution. You stop seeing yourself as someone who hopes things work out and start seeing yourself as someone who makes things work out. This identity shift reinforces all your tactical capabilities and makes continued development natural rather than forced. Your new identity attracts different opportunities, relationships, and challenges. People recognize your tactical capabilities and present you with more significant problems to solve and more important objectives to achieve. This creates an upward spiral where increased capability leads to increased opportunity, which leads to increased challenge, which leads to increased capability. Your growth accelerates as you tackle increasingly significant objectives. The ultimate outcome of complete tactical transformation is becoming unstoppable in pursuit of your chosen objectives. Not because you never face obstacles, but because you've developed the capability to overcome any obstacle. Not because you never experience setbacks, but because you've mastered the ability to convert setbacks into advantages. You become someone who creates value wherever you go because you can solve problems others can't solve, see opportunities others can't see, and execute solutions others can't execute. You develop the capability to achieve virtually any reasonable objective you choose to pursue. This transformation isn't completed in weeks or months. It's developed over years through consistent application of tactical principles to increasingly challenging situations. But once you begin the process, you start experiencing benefits immediately. Every day you operate tactically rather than reactively is a day when you create better results with less stress. Every week you think strategically rather than emotionally is a week when you make progress toward important objectives. Every month you operate systematically rather than randomly is a month when you build capabilities that serve you for life. The tactical mindset doesn't just change what you achieve, it changes who you become. You transform from someone who is controlled by circumstances to someone who controls circumstances. You become unstoppable. Not because nothing can stop you, but because you can overcome anything that tries to stop you. Your journey to tactical dominance begins with your next decision. Will you continue operating reactively, hoping circumstances work in your favor? Or will you start operating tactically, creating circumstances that guarantee your success? The choice is yours, but the time is now. Every day you delay tactical transformation is another day you remain vulnerable to setbacks that tactical operators turn into advantages. Every week you postpone systematic thinking is another week competitors gain ground you could have gained. The tactical mindset awaits your commitment. The capabilities are proven. The methods are clear. The only question is whether you'll use them.